The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Diane Franklin stared at the screen in her office at Earth Defense Headquarters, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. She read the message again, hoping the words would somehow change. They didn't. The Galactic Council, a coalition of the 7 most advanced alien civilizations, had sent Earth an ultimatum. They want what? President Kevin Ortega asked 30 minutes later. He stood at the head of the emergency meeting table, surrounded by his top advisors. Admiral Franklin cleared her throat. 100 humans, sir, to be delivered within 3 months as tribute. Their exact words were 100 of your finest specimens. The room fell silent. Outside the reinforced windows of the White House Situation Room, cherry blossoms swayed in the spring breeze, oblivious to the crisis unfolding inside. And if we refuse? Asked Secretary of State Maria Lopez. Franklin played the relevant portion of the message. The blue-skinned alien on screen spoke perfect English with an odd musical quality. Refusal is, of course, your right, said High Chancellor Zex Toril of the Arcturian Empire. However, non-compliance would necessitate your immediate quarantine from all galactic affairs. Your colonies on Mars, Europa, and beyond would be isolated. Your ships would be turned back at all established boundaries. Your development as a species would effectively end. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. This is not a punishment. It is simply protocol for species unwilling to participate. In galactic customs, you have 1 standard galactic cycle to comply. President Ortega rubbed his temples. Options, people. I need options. We could try fighting, suggested General Paul Martinez, his face grim. The Jupiter defense platform is nearly operational. And get wiped out? Energy Secretary Susan Taylor shook her head. Their technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of ours. We've all seen what their smallest ships can do. The debate continued. For hours. Some suggested a diplomatic mission to negotiate better terms. Others proposed hiding or evacuating key scientists and leaders in case the Council had more sinister plans. No solution seemed viable. As the meeting was about to adjourn, FBI Director Gregory Summers, who had been quiet throughout, finally spoke. What if we gave them what they asked for but not what they expect? All eyes turned to him. Explain, the President said. They asked for humans. They didn't specify which humans. Summers opened a folder and slid it across the table. The United States currently houses approximately 47,000 inmates in maximum security federal prisons. Many other nations have similar facilities. Among those prisoners are some of the worst people humanity has produced: murderers, terrorists, war criminals. You're suggesting we send criminals instead of innocent citizens? Admiral Franklin asked. I'm suggesting we give the Council exactly what they asked for, human specimens, while protecting our innocent population. Summers leaned forward. And who knows? Maybe sending them our worst will make them think twice about messing with Earth again. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. There are ethical concerns, Secretary Lopez said carefully. Even criminals have rights under our laws. And what about the rights of the billions of humans who would suffer if we're cut off from space? Summers countered. This is about survival. President Ortega stared out the window for a long moment. I want a detailed proposal on my desk in 24 hours. And keep this absolutely confidential. If word gets out that we're considering this option, the public panic would be unmanageable. As the meeting disbanded, Admiral Franklin found herself walking alongside Lieutenant Samantha Powell, a young officer from Space Force Intelligence who had been quietly taking notes in the corner. What do you think, Lieutenant? Franklin asked. Powell hesitated before answering. Permission to speak freely, ma'am? Always. I think Director Summers' plan could work, but it needs someone to run it who understands both security protocols and alien psychology. Powell's eyes were intense. The prisoners would need to be carefully selected and prepared. We'd need monitoring systems to track them after the handoff. And most importantly, we'd need a cover story that would hold up under alien scrutiny. Franklin studied the young woman. Powell had a reputation as a brilliant tactician, with an uncanny ability to anticipate threats before they materialized. Her file also noted her unconventional thinking, a trait that had sometimes put her at odds with military hierarchy. You've given this some thought in the last 5 minutes. I've actually been considering our options since the message came in this morning. You copied me on the transmission. Powell straightened her shoulders. If we're going to deceive a coalition of advanced alien species, we need to think 3 steps ahead. Later that evening, in the secure underground levels of the Pentagon, Operation Trojan Horse was born. President Ortega had approved the plan with one key addition. Lieutenant Powell would lead the operation, reporting directly to Admiral Franklin. Your mission is straightforward but nearly impossible, Franklin told Powell as they stood in the newly established command center. Screens around them displayed prison records from around the world. Find 100 of Earth's most dangerous criminals, who might also serve our purposes with the Council. You have 3 weeks to compile the list. Powell nodded, already scanning the data. And the selection criteria, ma'am? That's where it gets complicated. We need dangerous individuals, people whose removal from Earth benefits society, but they also need to be intelligent, adaptable, and in some cases possess specialized skills. Franklin handed Powell a tablet with a detailed briefing. We're not just removing threats from Earth. We're potentially sending troublemakers to the heart of the Galactic Council. Psychological warfare, Powell murmured. Exactly. The Council thinks they're intimidating us with this tribute demand. They see us as primitive, easy to manipulate. A thin smile appeared on Franklin's face. Let's show them how dangerous humans can really be. Over the next days, Powell assembled a small team of specialists to help with the selection process. Dr. Alan Blackwood, a behavioral psychologist who had spent years studying criminal minds, Captain Jack Rivers, a veteran Special Forces operator who understood combat skills and threat assessment, and Dr. Nancy Kim, an anthropologist who had worked with alien representatives since first contact 50 years ago. We're looking for the perfect mix of dangerous and useful, Powell explained to her team during their first briefing. People who might just survive out there, and who might even cause enough trouble to make the Council regret their demand. Dr. Kim looked troubled. The ethical implications have been noted and overruled at the highest levels, Powell interrupted. Earth's future is at stake. As they worked, news reports worldwide began speculating about the Council's unusual silence in recent weeks. Trade ships still arrived at the designated space stations, but diplomatic communications had ceased. Earth's governments maintained that everything was normal, but rumors spread. Time was running out. In 3 weeks, they needed to select 100 prisoners, prepare them for transport, and create a cover story convincing enough to fool beings far more advanced than humans. And they needed to do it all without the public discovering that their government planned to hand over criminals to aliens, instead of the best and brightest the Council might be expecting. Powell stared at the files filling her screen, each representing a potential candidate for the mission. One face after another, murderers, terrorists, criminal masterminds, all possibly Earth's unlikely saviors. The irony wasn't lost on her. Earth's worst might end up being humanity's best hope. The underground facility in Nevada shimmered with heat. Outside, the desert sun baked the earth, but inside, the temperature stayed cool as Lieutenant Samantha Powell walked between rows of monitors. 3 weeks had passed since Operation Trojan Horse began, and the clock was ticking. Where are we on the final selection? She asked Dr. Blackwood, who was reviewing psychological profiles. Almost there. Narrowed it down to 120 candidates. The psychologist looked tired. Dark circles hung under his eyes from endless hours of assessment. Still need to cut 20. Powell nodded and moved to the next station where Dr. Kim worked on cultural briefings. How do we prepare humans for alien environments when we've never been allowed to visit most Council worlds? Powell asked. Dr. Kim pushed her glasses up. We work with what we know. The Council consists of 7 species, each with different biology and cultural norms. I've created basic guides based on our limited diplomatic exchanges. Powell examined the tablet Dr. Kim handed her. The screen showed bizarre alien customs, never showing teeth to a Denebian, avoiding certain color combinations around Rigelians. Specific greeting postures for Arcturians. Will this be enough? Powell asked. It has to be, Dr. Kim answered simply. At the far end of the room, Captain Rivers supervised the security team preparing monitoring implants. The devices, smaller than a grain of rice, would be placed behind each prisoner's ear. They would transmit basic location and health data back to Earth through a network of quantum relay beacons. The range is limited, Captain Rivers explained. Once they're beyond the Kuiper Belt, we'll only get updates when they pass near our hidden relays. Better than nothing, Powell said. What about Dr. Martinez's work? She's in Surgical Bay 3. Want to see? Powell followed Rivers through security doors until they reached the medical section. Dr. Olivia Martinez looked up from a microscope as they entered. Lieutenant, good timing. I've just finished the final prototype. Martinez held up what looked like a small silver disc. The monitoring device is just the start. This implant includes a one-way communication receiver. We can send brief text messages to the prisoners after they're taken. Send messages how? Powell asked. The Council monitors all transmissions. Quantum entanglement, Martinez said with a small smile. Particles that remain connected no matter the distance between them. The Council thinks we're still decades away from mastering this technology. Powell was impressed. So we can provide instructions if needed? Limited ones. No more than 20 words at a time and only to all implants at once, not individual ones. It's something, Powell said. When do we begin the implantation procedures? Tomorrow. The prisoners arrive tonight. Night fell as transport vehicles delivered the selected inmates. They came from prisons across the globe: Russia, China, Brazil, Nigeria, Germany, and the United States. Each prisoner had been told only that they were being transferred to a new facility for a special program. None knew the truth yet. Powell watched from the observation deck as the first group arrived. They shuffled in wearing orange jumpsuits, hands and feet chained. Is that him? Powell asked, pointing to a tall man with calculating eyes who surveyed the room immediately upon entering. Captain Rivers nodded. Victor Reyes, former Special Forces before he went mercenary, responsible for toppling 3 governments in South America, skilled in infiltration, weapons, improvisation, and 15 confirmed languages. And that woman? Powell indicated a slight figure with intense eyes who somehow seemed to note every camera in the ceiling. Natalie Carson, the hacker who crashed the Asian financial network 3 years ago, caused billions in damage from a laptop in a coffee shop. People tend to underestimate her because of her size. The prisoners were processed one by one, photographed, scanned, and assigned to secure quarters. Some seemed confused, others suspicious. A few looked like they were already planning escapes. At midnight, Powell called a meeting with her core team. Tomorrow we tell them the truth, she said. Dr. Blackwood, what's your prediction for their reactions? The psychologist considered the question. Initial disbelief, followed by various coping mechanisms. Some will see it as a death sentence. Others might view it as an opportunity. A few might even volunteer once they understand the stakes. And the dangerous ones? Powell asked. Will remain dangerous, Blackwood said simply. We selected them partly for that reason. The next morning, Powell addressed the prisoners in groups of 20. She stood behind a protective barrier as armed guards watched the inmates carefully. You're probably wondering why you're here, she began. The truth is that Earth needs you, not for your criminal skills, but because you're expendable. Murmurs spread through the group. 3 weeks ago, the Galactic Council demanded that Earth provide 100 humans as tribute. We've decided to send you. The room erupted into shouts and curses. Guards raised their weapons until order returned. A muscular man with a scar across his face spoke up. So what? We're being sacrificed to aliens now? In a manner of speaking, Powell answered honestly. Though we don't know for certain what the Council wants with human tributes, you'll be implanted with monitoring devices that will send data back to Earth. What happens after the handover is unknown. What's the alternative? Asked another prisoner, a woman with intricate tattoos covering her arms. Rot in prison for the rest of our lives? For most of you, yes, Powell said. Some of you face execution in your home countries. This offers a different path. A path to what? Being alien lab rats? Someone shouted from the back. Powell remained calm. Possibly. Or perhaps something else entirely. The Council has never explained their tribute system fully. Other developing species have provided tributes before. Some of those individuals, reportedly, gained positions of influence. This caught their attention. The noise settled as they considered the implications. You mean some of us might end up working for these aliens? Asked Patrick Monroe, a charismatic man who had led a deadly cult. His soft voice carried surprising authority. It's happened before, Powell confirmed. The Galactic Council integrates useful individuals into their hierarchy. Your criminal past might actually make you more adaptable to alien environments and power structures. Through the day, Powell repeated this information to each group. Reactions varied, but by evening, a pattern emerged. Most prisoners were cautiously interested. The worst that could happen seemed no worse than their current fate, and the possibilities intrigued them. Meanwhile, in another section of the facility, Commander Ryan Phillips met with Admiral Franklin. They reviewed specs for the USS Defender, the ship that would transport the prisoners to the rendezvous point. My crew is ready, Phillips said, though not all of them like this plan. They don't have to like it, Franklin replied. They just need to execute it flawlessly. The Council must believe these are ordinary citizens, not our worst criminals. Phillips nodded. And Senior Diplomatic Officer Hayes? Is she prepared? Sandra Hayes is one of our best, Franklin assured him. She's been briefing with alien representatives for years. If anyone can sell this deception, it's her. As the final preparations continued, Powell visited the medical bay where Dr. Martinez supervised the implantation procedures. One by one, prisoners received the tiny devices behind their ears. The quantum entanglement communicator was hidden among ordinary-looking medical implants. When do we launch? Powell asked. 5 days, Martinez replied. May God help us all if this fails. Powell touched the bandage behind her own ear. She had insisted on receiving the same implant. If things went wrong, she wanted to know. The entire planet's future hung in the balance, resting on the shoulders of the last people anyone would trust with such responsibility. Earth's worst criminals were about to become humanity's secret weapon. The USS Defender hung in space like a silver needle against the black cloth of stars. Inside, Commander Ryan Phillips stood on the bridge, watching as his crew made final preparations. The 100 prisoners were secured in the modified cargo hold, which had been converted into basic living quarters. Status report, Phillips said to his first officer. All systems normal, sir. We'll reach the meeting point in 6 hours. Phillips nodded. And our guests? Quiet, for now. Dr. Blackwood is monitoring their vital signs. No serious problems yet, though a few are showing signs of space sickness. Phillips had been against this plan from the start, but he understood the stakes. Earth had no choice but to comply with the Council's demand, at least on the surface. Sending criminals instead of innocent citizens was a dangerous gamble, but it was the best bad option they had. He left the bridge and walked to the diplomatic section where Senior Diplomatic Officer Sandra Hayes was reviewing her notes. Hayes was a tall woman with gray-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. Ready for the performance of your life? Phillips asked her. Hayes looked up. As ready as I'll ever be. The Council representatives will focus mainly on quantity and health. They care more about having the right number of humans than which humans they get. You sound confident. I've dealt with them for 15 years, Hayes said. Most Council species view humans as barely sentient anyway. They'll notice we're not sending scientists or leaders, but they won't care enough to question it deeply. Meanwhile, in the cargo hold, the prisoners had formed their own social hierarchy. Victor Reyes, the former mercenary, had naturally assumed leadership of the military-trained inmates. Natalie Carson gathered the technically skilled. Patrick Monroe, with his strange charisma, had attracted a following of his own. What do you think they want us for? Asked Linda Flores, a woman who had once broken into some of the most secure facilities on Earth. She sat with Carson, who was trying to understand the ship's systems through a limited data terminal. Labor, experiments, entertainment, Carson replied without looking up. Does it matter? We're leaving Earth one way or another. It matters if we want to survive, said William Harris, joining their conversation. Harris had been a corporate spy, responsible for stealing technological secrets worth billions. If we know their purpose, we can prepare. In another section, Daniel Barton, a former Special Forces soldier convicted of assassinating a foreign minister, was assessing their situation. This ship is military, he told Reyes quietly. Advanced weapons, reinforced hull. If we could take control, we can't, Reyes cut him off. Even if we somehow overpowered the crew, the Council would destroy us before we got far. Our best chance is to play along until we understand what we're facing. Barton looked disappointed but nodded. So we just let them hand us over to aliens. For now, Reyes said. But keep watching. Look for weapons. Observe security protocols. Map every section of the alien ship when we board. Information is survival. A tone sounded throughout the ship. Commander Phillips's voice came over the speakers. Attention all personnel. We will rendezvous with the Council vessel in 1 hour. All prisoners are to prepare for transfer according to the instructions you received. Medical staff entered the cargo hold, checking the implants behind each prisoner's ear. Each person was given a plain gray uniform with the Earth government, seal on the shoulder, a small blue and green circle. Dr. Blackwood addressed the group. Remember, you are representing Earth. The Council expects compliance and respect. Your personal opinions of this situation don't matter. What matters is survival, yours and potentially Earth's. Why should we care about Earth? Someone shouted. Earth threw us away. Patrick Monroe stepped forward, his voice smooth and reasonable. Because regardless of our past, we are human. The aliens are not. Would you rather be the lowest human or an alien's pet? Besides, this is the most interesting thing to happen to any of us in years. His words calmed the group. Monroe had a gift for persuasion that had once led hundreds to follow him into terrible acts. Now he used it to maintain order among the prisoners. On the bridge, Phillips received the alert they had all been waiting for. The Council ship had arrived. On the main screen, an enormous vessel appeared, dwarfing the USS Defender. It was shaped like a massive arrowhead, its surface gleaming with lights and strange patterns. Open communications, Phillips ordered. The screen changed to show an alien face. The High Chancellor Zexteral had 4 eyes arranged vertically on a blue-skinned face. His mouth was small and lipless, and bony ridges protected his throat. Greetings, Commander Phillips of Earth, the alien said in perfect English. We are pleased you have complied with the Council's request. High Chancellor, Phillips replied with a formal bow. Earth respects the traditions of the Galactic Council. We are prepared to transfer the tribute at your convenience. Excellent, prepare to be boarded. Our inspection team will verify your compliance before the transfer. The screen went dark. Phillips turned to his crew. Battle stations, quietly. No obvious defensive posture, but be ready for anything. 20 minutes later, a shuttle from the Council ship docked with the Defender. 6 aliens emerged, 4 Arcturians like the High Chancellor, accompanied by 2 reptilian beings with scales that shifted color as they moved. Sandra Hayes greeted them with the formal gestures Dr. Kim had prepared. Welcome aboard the USS Defender. I am Senior Diplomatic Officer Hayes, Earth's representative for this exchange. The lead alien, who introduced himself as Council Security Chief Krelvax, nodded stiffly. We will inspect the tribute now. Hayes led the aliens to the cargo hold where the prisoners stood in ordered rows. The Council representatives moved among them, scanning with small devices, occasionally stopping to examine a prisoner more closely. Krelvax paused before Victor Reyes, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. This one has many scars of combat. He was a soldier, Hayes explained smoothly. Earth values its warriors. The alien moved on to Natalie Carson. This one is small, weak physical specimen. Her strength is in intelligence, Hayes said. Humans come in many forms, each with different qualities. Throughout the inspection, the prisoners remained silent, following their instructions perfectly. Even the most rebellious among them understood the importance of getting onto the council ship. After an hour, Krelvax approached Hayes. "The specimens appear adequate, though not what we expected." "Oh?" Hayes kept her expression neutral. "In what way?" "Many show signs of physical trauma. Some have unusual psychological patterns." The alien's eyes narrowed. "These are not your best examples of humanity." Hayes smiled diplomatically. "They represent diverse aspects of human capability. Some are physically strong, others mentally gifted. Together they provide a complete picture of our species." Krelvax seemed suspicious but nodded. "The agreement did not specify quality, only quantity. We accept the tribute." The prisoners were led in groups of 10 to the council shuttle. As Victor Reyes passed Commander Phillips, their eyes met briefly. Both men understood this was likely the last time any of these humans would see another Earth vessel. William Harris was carefully memorizing every detail of the alien shuttle's interior. Linda Flores had already identified 3 different types of control panels. Daniel Barton noted the weapons carried by the alien guards, slim devices that emitted no visible energy, yet clearly commanded respect. The last group boarded the shuttle. Phillips watched from the viewport as it returned to the massive council ship. The operation had succeeded. Earth had complied with the council's demand while protecting its innocent citizens. What happened next would depend on 100 criminals cast into the depths of galactic politics. The prisoners had been on the alien ship for 3 days. They were kept in a large circular room with 100 small sleeping pods around the edges. The center of the room had tables and chairs bolted to the floor. Guards stood at the only door. Victor Reyes sat with his back to the wall, watching everything. The aliens had taken their gray Earth uniforms and given them new clothes, simple white jumpsuits with strange symbols on the shoulders. "They're dividing us into groups," Natalie Carson said quietly as she sat beside him. "The symbols are different. Mine matches Harris and Flores." Reyes nodded. "I noticed. They put all the ex-military together." Across the room, Patrick Monroe was talking with a small group. His voice didn't carry, but his hands moved in expressive gestures. The people around him nodded, looking calmer than the others. "He's going to be trouble," Reyes muttered. "We're all trouble," Carson replied with a small smile. "That's why we're here." The main door slid open. 3 Arcturians entered, accompanied by a new alien species the prisoners hadn't seen before. This one was tall and thin with gray skin that seemed almost translucent. Its eyes were huge and entirely black. "Attention," the lead Arcturian announced. "You will now begin orientation. Follow Dr. Zalon Vex to the assessment chamber." The thin gray alien stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice had an odd echo, as if 2 people were talking at once. "You will proceed in an orderly fashion. Any resistance will result in immediate disciplinary measures." The prisoners lined up and followed the aliens through long corridors. William Harris counted turns and noted security features. Linda Flores studied the control panels they passed. Daniel Barton watched how the guards held their weapons and where they positioned themselves. They entered a massive chamber filled with strange equipment. Clear tubes large enough to hold a person stood in rows. Computer screens with alien writing covered the walls. Medical-looking devices hung from the ceiling. "Welcome to the Ascension Protocol Testing Facility, Dr. Zalon," Vex announced. "Here we will determine your usefulness to the Galactic Council." The prisoners exchanged glances. This didn't sound like diplomatic integration. "Beginning today, you will undergo a series of tests to assess your biological and psychological makeup," the alien doctor continued. "These tests will help us understand human vulnerabilities and potential." Victor Reyes stepped forward. "We were told we would be representing Earth in the Council, not being lab rats." The alien's expression didn't change, if it could change at all. "You were misinformed. The tribute system exists to provide research subjects for dominant species. Earth is not a full council member and has no representatives here." Murmurs spread through the prisoners. They had been deceived, not just by the aliens, but by Earth itself. "The first group will begin tests now. Dr. Zalonvek said, pointing to those with a particular shoulder symbol. The rest will return to quarters. 20 prisoners, including Natalie Carson, were separated from the others. As the main group was led away, Carson caught Reyes's eye and tapped her ear slightly, a reminder about the implants. Whatever happened, Earth would know. Back in their quarters, Reyes gathered his allies. We need to prepare, he told them quietly. These tests are likely dangerous, possibly fatal. So what's the plan? Barton asked. We're trapped on an alien ship light years from home. First, we gather information. Then we find weaknesses. Every system has them. Meanwhile, Natalie Carson and the others in her group were led to individual stations around the testing chamber. She was directed to a chair surrounded by equipment. Restraints automatically closed around her wrists and ankles. This initial assessment will map your neural pathways, Dr. Zalonvek explained as a helmet-like device lowered toward Carson's head. The process is not pleasant, but rarely fatal. Carson tried to remain calm as the device connected to her scalp. Pain shot through her head, but she kept her eyes open, studying the control panel nearest to her. The screen displayed information in alien language, but she noticed patterns in the symbols. The machine hummed louder. The pain increased. Then, something unexpected happened. Carson had spent years breaking into computer systems, understanding how information flowed. The neural interface worked both ways. As it read her brain, she received flashes of the system's structure. She closed her eyes, focusing on these flashes. It was like seeing fragments of code. Most made no sense, but some patterns were recognizable. Access, protocols, data pathways, security systems. When the test ended, Carson was drained but alert. As technicians removed the restraints, she kept her expression blank, hiding the valuable information she had gleaned. Hours later, when all testing groups had returned to quarters, the prisoners shared what they had learned. Many had suffered painful or frightening procedures. Some returned with visible injuries. They're not just studying us, Carson told the others quietly. They're looking for weaknesses, ways to hurt humans. Why? Asked Linda Flores. We're not a threat to them. William Harris, who had been assigned to a different test group, answered. I was in a room with screens showing Earth. They're monitoring our planet, our defenses. I think they're preparing for something bigger. That night, as most prisoners slept, the implants behind their ears activated with a soft buzz. A message from Earth appeared in their minds like a whisper. Council plans hostile, gather intelligence, await instructions. The next morning, Dr. Zalonvek returned with guards. The next phase begins today. We have selected subjects for specialized testing. 10 names were called, including Patrick Monroe. As they were led away, Monroe's followers looked concerned. What happens to them? Victor Reyes asked one of the Attu. Guards. The Arcturian made a gesture that might have been a shrug. The Ascension Protocol has many stages. Not all subjects complete them. Later that day, only 8 of the 10 returned. Monroe was among them, but he looked different. His eyes were bloodshot, his movements jerky. When he spoke to his followers, his normally smooth voice cracked. They're in our heads, he whispered, looking for ways to control us. That night, during the sleep cycle, Carson whispered to Reyes, I found something during my test, a way into their system. If I can access a terminal again, I might be able to learn their real plans. Good, because we need to move soon. Reyes showed her his arm where a rash was spreading. Some of us are having reactions to something in the air or food. I don't think they care if we survive these tests. The next day, during the 3rd round of testing, opportunity came. A minor power fluctuation affected the security doors. Victor Reyes, who had been watching for any weakness, used the momentary gap in security to slip away from his test group. He moved quickly through unguarded corridors, finding a storage area filled with equipment. Some looked like weapons. He grabbed what he could conceal and returned to the testing area before his absence was noticed. Meanwhile, Natalie Carson had been connected to another neural interface. This time, she was prepared. As the machine scanned her brain, she focused, on specific thought patterns that triggered system responses. It was like picking a lock with her mind. For just 3 seconds, she gained access to the alien network. It was enough to confirm their worst fears. The implant behind her ear recorded what she found: files labeled human containment, biological vulnerabilities, and most disturbing, extinction protocols. The Council wasn't studying humans out of scientific curiosity. They were developing weapons to use against Earth. That night, the implants activated again. All prisoners received the same message: prepare uprising, 3 days. Earth had received their data. Help was coming. But first, 100 criminals would need to create chaos in the heart of the Galactic Council. The plan spread through whispers during mealtimes. Victor Reyes coordinated with group leaders, assigning roles based on skills. Natalie Carson explained what she had learned about the ship's systems. Daniel Barton distributed the makeshift weapons Reyes had gathered. 3 days, Reyes reminded them. Earth is sending help, but we need to create the opportunity. Patrick Monroe, despite his unstable condition after the neural tests, proved useful. He had begun speaking to the lower-ranking alien staff during his tests, using his gift for manipulation. Several of the junior researchers now treated him differently, almost with respect. They're afraid of their leaders, Monroe explained. The Council species don't all agree on how to handle Earth. Some think we should be integrated, not eliminated. Can you turn any of them to help us? Reyes asked. Monroe smiled weakly. 2 already have. They believe I'm a religious leader being unjustly persecuted. I may have implied that humans have special mental powers that their leaders are hiding from them. On the second day, Dr. Zalon Vex announced a new round of testing. We have selected 30 subjects for advanced biological sampling, the alien doctor said. These tests will help us understand human resistance to various compounds. Linda, Flores, was among those selected. Before she left, Carson grabbed her hand. Remember the plan. Look for access points in the new section. The testing that day was more invasive. Prisoners returned with surgical incisions and missing small pieces of tissue. Some were too weak to stand. 2 did not return at all. That night, the implants activated again. Tomorrow, 8:0800 ship time. Defense systems will drop briefly. The final day arrived. At breakfast, the prisoners ate silently, mentally preparing. They had hidden small weapons in their clothing, metal objects broken from furniture, chemical compounds stolen from labs, even fabric soaked in cleaning fluid that could burn when lit. At exactly 8:00, the lights flickered. A moment later, alarms sounded throughout the ship. Now, Reyes shouted. The prisoners moved with surprising coordination. Groups had been assigned to different objectives. Barton led a team to secure the main door. Flores and Harris headed for the nearest control room with Carson. Monroe and his followers created a distraction, chanting and advancing on the guards with religious-like fervor. 2 alien staff members whom Monroe had manipulated actually joined, them creating confusion among the security forces. In the corridor, they faced resistance. Guards fired weapons that shot pulses of energy, painful but set to stun rather than kill. 3 prisoners fell, but the others pressed forward. Carson, Flores, and Harris fought their way to a control room. Inside, Carson went straight to a terminal. Cover me, she said as her fingers flew over the alien interface. The patterns she had memorized during her neural testing now guided her actions. Hurry, Harris urged, watching the door. Almost there, Carson muttered. Then her face lit up. Got it. Security systems in Section 3 are down. Meanwhile, Reyes led another group toward the shuttle bay. If they could secure a ship, even a small one, they might escape. Fighting was intense in the corridors, but the humans had surprise on their side. The aliens never expected their test subjects to mount such a coordinated attack. In another part of the ship, Patrick Monroe had barricaded himself and 20 followers in a communications center. 2 alien technicians worked frantically at his direction, sending messages to other ships. Tell them exactly what I said, Monroe ordered. The Council leadership has been experimenting with illegal weapons. They plan genocide against a developing species violating galactic law. The message went out to dozens of ships and stations. Monroe had learned enough about council politics to know this would cause chaos. Dr. Zalon Vex rushed into the main security center, where Krelvax was directing guards. "This is unacceptable," Vex hissed. "My subjects are destroying vital research." "Your subjects are fighting like trained soldiers," Krelvax replied. "These are not ordinary humans. Someone has deceived us." An aide approached nervously. "Sir, we're receiving messages from the central hub. They're asking about rumors of illegal weapons research against Earth." Krelvax's four eyes blinked rapidly. "What? How could they know?" "The human called Monroe has access to communications. He's broadcasting to the entire network." On the command deck, High Chancellor Zextoral received increasingly disturbing reports. Not only had the human test subjects escaped containment, but they had accessed restricted systems, stolen data, and worst of all, revealed secret research to other council members. "We must contain this," he ordered. "Lock down all sections, if necessary, purge the affected areas." But it was too late. Carson had accessed the ship's internal systems and disabled safety protocols. Fire suppression systems sprayed corridors with chemicals. Doors opened and closed randomly. Security cameras showed only static. In the shuttle bay, Reyes and his team secured a small transport vessel. Harris, who had joined them after helping Carson, worked on bypassing the launch controls. "We're almost ready," he called to Reyes. 5 minutes. Suddenly, the entire ship shuddered. External alarms blared. On a nearby screen, Reyes saw the impossible. 3 Earth vessels had appeared, emerging from what looked like tears in space itself. "Quantum jump technology," Harris breathed. "They said we were decades away from mastering it." The Earth ships were small compared to the Council vessel, but they moved with precision, targeting weapon systems and engines. The element of surprise was total. A new message appeared in their implants. "Hold positions, reinforcements arriving." Throughout the ship, the prisoners who had created so much chaos now worked to secure their locations. In the control room, Carson downloaded everything she could find about the Council's plans for Earth. On the command deck, High Chancellor Zextoral received a transmission from the lead Earth vessel. Admiral Diane Franklin's face filled the screen. "High Chancellor," she said calmly. "It appears there has been a misunderstanding about Earth's tribute." "This is an act of war," Zextoral sputtered. "You will be destroyed." "I think not," Franklin replied. "We have evidence of your illegal weapons research. The full Council is receiving this data as we speak. Additionally, several of your security systems have been compromised. Your ship is currently unable to use main weapons or engines." She let that sink in before continuing. "We propose a new arrangement. Earth will withdraw its tributes and provide assistance in resolving this unfortunate situation. In exchange, the Council will recognize Earth as a full member with all associated protections." Hours later, Council security escorts led the prisoners to Earth shuttles. Some had been injured in the fighting. A few had not survived. But most walked proudly, aware they had accomplished something remarkable. As Victor Reyes boarded the shuttle, he passed Admiral Franklin. "Well done, soldier," she said quietly. "Not a soldier anymore," he reminded her. "Just a criminal." Franklin smiled, slightly. "That may change. Earth now needs representatives to the Council, people who understand them, who've seen their deceptions firsthand." Reyes looked surprised. "You'd trust us with that? You just saved humanity from biological warfare. I'd say you've earned a second chance." As the shuttles departed, carrying Earth's unlikely heroes home, the Galactic Council faced its own crisis. The tribute system was exposed as a cover for weapons research. Member species demanded answers. On Earth, President Ortega watched the ship's return. Operation Trojan Horse had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. By sending their worst, Earth had revealed the Council's worst and secured humanity's future among the stars. Sometimes, he reflected, it takes a criminal to catch a criminal, even when those criminals come from different worlds.